Okay. Hello, third year students. I'm very glad to meet you again. Today, inshallah, we will tackle ways to teach culture. Since we have, you might wonder why I have jumped to culture, because how to teach reading and speak and writing. I guess you are dealing with them in your other subjects with Mr. Umar and creative writing and those materials. What I want you to focus when you are dealing with a second language student, an FL student, you have to tackle. You need to concentrate on their culture. Since we are all Arabs, that we are dealing with Arabs, we are all teaching the same, because there's no when you are dealing with certain materials, you have to pay attention to certain topics, not to tell, to be very cautious, not to use certain terms. Let's in our culture and our religion, they are not preferable. But when you are teaching in a foreign country, you need to know their culture. So the concept of culture is very important. It is called acculturation. The difference between culture and acculturation, when you are teaching a language, you need to use their culture and embedded it in your teaching. Let's say you are teaching in Sudan, or let's say you are teaching in India or teaching in Turkey. So you need to focus on their cultural items in order to make the picture for them much clearer, and to use the language, the target language that they are dealing with a very good comprehension. So how to teach culture? We have so many items that we need to focus on, and it is what is mentioned in the blue fonts. It said that culture is like an iceberg. شنو يعني iceberg؟ يعني جبل جليدي that only 10% of it is visible and the other 90% is hidden below the surface. For this reason, an SL or FL teacher must make intentional efforts to teach cultural understanding and tolerance to their students. Like I said, إنه الثقافة الculture اللي واضح هو شيء كلش بسيط. طاكم الاستعارة اللي هي الآيسبرغ، اللي هي الجبل الجليدي. أتوقع الكل يعرف الجبل الجليدي، يكون قمته شوية مبين والباقي كله تحت الماء. So those are the ways. So let's tackle the ways. You can manifest them in the way you like. Read those items and write whatever you like and whatever you have understand. I'm not limiting you. I want you to be free to express the things that you are dealing with. So let's start with, let's say, food. Since we are dealing with Iraqi SL students, so we're dealing, let's say, with food. You have to tackle, will you eat dolma? Will you eat biryani? Will you eat those things? So when you are inserting those cultural items, you will make them use language in a very good and a very interesting way. So this is what I want to do. And what's meant in the bold, what you have to do is to have a cultural food fair. يعني تسوي لهم مثل المعرض اللي تعرض بالفود مالتهم. الأكثر شيء اللي يوضح الثقافة مال أي بلد، يعني حسب خبرتي أني دراستي، هو الفود. يعني الأكل مو لأنه أنت مهتم بالأكل اللي تريد تاكل، لا، الفود يعني ينطي طابع. It's a cultural identity، يعني ينطي cultural identity لهذا المكان. يعني ليش هسه عندنا المطبخ الفرنسي، الروسي، الإيطالي، المعرف إيش؟ هاي identity، هاي ندخل من ضمن ال cultural identity. فالfood is very important factor that you need to focus when you are dealing with an SL students. Okay, their holidays, when you are, let's as I mentioned earlier, when you are dealing with students, they are maybe Christians or Jews or maybe Yazidi or Sobbi. All of them, they have their rituals, they have their holidays. So that's from my experience. I had so many Christian friends. So when the time of Christmas, although we are having one day off, it's the New Year's Eve, but they have their rituals, they have the, so they have a sick leave and they will not attend our lectures. So this is what is meant by dealing with different items and different cultural holidays. Clothing is a third. Traditional clothing is a very important factor in manifesting the culture. Let's say in the Iraqi culture, they are dealing with the shimagh and agal, right? And those other things. For women, they have the abaya, and they have bushi and those things. Let's say for the Iraqi culture, when you have for, let's say for Scottish people that live in the northern of London, they wear things like skirts. They are manly skirts and they are very striped. They are chopped like, and it's very important to. This is what meant by a Scottish traditional clothing. Okay, you can read and you can tell whatever you like from what's written in those pages. You have music. Okay, this is a very traditional. Let's say for Arabs, the traditional instrument is the oud. And for the Western cultures, they have the guitar, piano. So those instruments and those types of music differs. We have the nai, right? So those items express cultural identity. Money also one of the factors, although it's a very weak, but it's a very crucial, especially in our times. For the dollar, the American dollar, you have the yen, you have the euro, you have the real. So those things like Saudi are having real, Iraqi have dinars, US have dollars, penny for the UK. I don't know what others. The European countries, they have the euro, the yen for the Japanese coins. So those things are cultural, specific. يعني identify this culture. After money, we have the traditional stories. This is a very interesting. We have the Al-Rawe. They have the boogeyman, the Western. They have Bloody Mary. They have Faustus, whatever. Let's say there are so many things. We have our Gilgamesh. We have our Lilith, and how those things are related to our culture. For Indian, they say they have Shiva, and they have those traditional stories about the white elephant and those things. For the Red Indians, the original Americans of North America, they have the story of the ghost, story of the spirits and reincarnation. Those are cultural and tribal stories that were traditionally used. This is the folklore, our folklore. So we have so many things like that, and we have to, when we are dealing with the students, with the NSL students, we can make them participate in the target language using those stories. It will be very interesting. You can, when you are teaching our students, inshallah, your students, inshallah, in the future, you can tell them to tell me what do you know about Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh is our national hero, or Hammurabi, or Nabucodonosor. You can do whatever, choose whatever one of those, and those are our Iraqi specific cultural figures and heroes, especially history. Before we tackle history, let's say to religion, and this is a very obvious point. You are dealing with religion, since we are Muslims, and Muslims they have certain practices or beliefs. So you have to I said earlier, when you have a friend or a student from another religion, don't treat them in a very racist or a very a good way. Respect them, deal with them. I remember my teachers when we have the Islamian lecture, or the dars al-Islamiyya, the Christians girls, they went out, or they are preferred, if they prefer to stay or to go out, they are free. So you have to know those things are, you have to tackle them when you are teaching as students, because they are very, very effective, very, very crucial, and very essential. Tackle them in a very cautious way, okay? Since when you need someone to respect you, respect them back, even if they are your students, because your students are your future leaders, okay? As are you. Before we finish, we have the history of you have to tackle history, so you can discuss that with your students about events of the history of the country that you are living in, both of you, the teacher and the students. Let's say you are an Iraqi as a teacher, and you are teaching students in Jordan. Let's say the Jordanian students, you want them to participate using the target language by using a historical event. Let's say choosing the history of something that happened in their future, and then it's them to talk about their king, King Hussein, or you can tell them an historical event from your country. Let's say the sanctions during the 90s, or you can tell them the story or historical events that happened in Iraq, although they are all very painful, but there must be something good. The point here is that choosing an event and using it in a good way, choosing an event that's relatable to your students, and give them space to read about it. You have family, so the family values are the last thing. The family values is very important. Sometimes we have families that the mother is from a country and the father is from another country. Maybe she's a Palestinian and he's a Jordanian, or she's a Syrian and he's an Iraqi. So we have so many things. We have to preserve the family values of both and to tackle them. And since if we have such students that have this mixed families, we want them to share their experience with us and with the class. And this is a very interesting topic that I want you to tackle. So the last point, I want you to know that culture permeates every aspect of our being. يعني يقول لك إنه الثقافة، خصوصا الثقافة أو الحضارة خلينا نقول اللي إحنا نعيش بيها، هي موجودة بكل جوانب الحياة مالتنا. So you can use them intentionally and bring discussions about culture into the classroom. So you are free to bring those things into a discussion to classroom using those topics. And as Ajala and rules, take advantages of every opportunity to talk about culture with an open mind. Okay, يعني be open اسمع وسع مداركك أنت كتدريسي. This is a very important aspect. You will be a better teacher for it, and your students will be better leaders of their nations. I like this very much. The last line is a very interesting, and I know that you will be our next leaders, inshallah. I trust you. So thank you, my students, for listening.